Today we're going to talk about this car, and we're going to fix the top roof latch on a BMW E36 E46 2006 model, or an E46. We've had this car for a while, and we love it. It's a fantastic car. It's fun to drive, still fun to drive even after having it for a long time. It's held up really well, but it's starting to get, it's a 2006, so it's starting to get kind of old. The one thing that goes wrong with them is the latch motor. There's two little gears in there, and the latch motor has a plastic gear that breaks over a certain period of time. And it's really not that hard to fix, but I have been in latch hell because of some parts I've been getting to fix this. But I'm going to go into that a little bit further, and we'll get started. If you're thinking about putting together these parts right here in a BMW 325 Ci E46, buyer beware. You should watch this video before you buy these parts. Okay, kind of set that off to the side. Now the gears are exposed. This should have some grease in there, but this is the first retainer. And the first time I saw this, what happened is it worked. This worked for like a month, and the top worked just fine. And then all of a sudden, I heard that zit, 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 and I thought it was the latches because that was something I hadn't replaced. And then I pulled it out, and then I realized that this, not this piece, but this piece down here on bottom, it was barely catching. And see, and this is what it did. See, I don't know if you can see that. It boogered up the threads. It only hits in the middle, so the whole width doesn't really matter. And then because it was barely setting in there. Now something I kind of strange. Okay, now we're going to get into the crazy part. So anyway, this gear went bad, so I got another gear and I was going to fix it with it, and I had kind of established that the problem with it was these retainers, which if you got the factory retainers, you probably want to keep those because these seem to have a little play in them. Now, that may be for grease, but I bought two more of these because this is the buyer beware part, is this spline has a very fine thing, and then these cables fit on there like that, and that turns your motor. And as you see, that's a very fine threaded. Now, I didn't even notice that when I was online looking for these parts, and these had the exact same part number, but they're different parts. I ordered a new one of these, and then hoping maybe that I'd get better results, and I got this. And as you see, these two are not the same. This has a coarser spline on it, and I got this, and I put it together, and then I realized my cables wouldn't work, and I got pretty upset, and I had to take it all back apart again and stick my old stuff back in there. Now, what I'd kind of established with the old stuff was what was happening is I didn't think this gear, or these two gears, were intersecting enough, because it was just barely clipping this other gear. But now, see, it's barely clipping that gear, and see how I ground that down? I don't know. I ground that down right there. Anyway, I hope I get better results. They said, oh man, you're replacing a plastic part with a metal part, it's got to be better. But then they use this really soft brass as the gear, so I don't know. I think they make everything to break these days. So anyway, I got online, and then I realized after I looked around that these were different. And I called the guys and I said, hey, your part doesn't fit. They acted like they didn't believe me. So then I ordered another part. But this time, if you're online, if you're on eBay, you can see the difference. You'll see the one with the coarse thread, and then you'll see one with this fine thread. Can you see that? Yeah. Coarse thread, fine thread. So anyway, so this makes the third time that I've taken this thing apart to put it back together again. Now, I thought the gear was barely hitting, so what I did last time, which I guess those didn't stay in there. Yeah, they did. I put two little tiny pieces of paper down here at the bottom of where that retainer is to lift that gear up just a little tiny bit. And as you see, it's just a tiny bit. It's, you know, 64th of an inch. You can see it right there. But anyway, I had to put it back together because I had to use the old gear. And this gear here was already had that notch in there. So I raised it up a little bit and it worked. It worked just fine for a little while. And then it started clicking this thing off, probably because it barely grabbing. So this time I think I'm going to leave the paper in there, because I'm also thinking, because this is another thing that's really weird about this. Now remember, this all have the same part. These are all the same part number. These go on there and almost seem to have a little play in them. And you know, I didn't really think about that at first, because I thought, well, there'd be grease in there and that little bit of play, well, it shouldn't matter, which it really shouldn't. But then I got this other one, and it had these things, and they don't fit. They don't even fit on there. So that means that what we're really looking for is one of these that is in between this and that. But I don't have that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave those two little pieces of paper in there to raise that gear up just a hair. And hopefully we're going to have better results this time. Anyway, I'm going to put it back together again, and then we'll talk about putting it back together. Anyway, buyer beware. Same part number, different parts. You know, Chinese thing. Now I'm going to show you how to replace the part. As you see, there's some screws underneath here you got to take off. And use the 10 for that. And then right in here, then you lift your top up so it does this, and you got to put something underneath it, because it won't stay. It'll drop down, and you need it like this so you can get a little play in here. And then you can reach inside here, and right here, there's screws. A lot like that, and it's, you know, you got to do that from inside here, and that's kind of hard. But the good news is you don't have to take the screws all the way out. All you have to do is loosen them a little bit, and the screws, then you can take this cover off. You got to take the screws out of the front and the screws off the back. There's also a screw that goes right here on the inside, right here on the inside, right here where my finger is pointing. There's a screw, and I think it takes a little bigger head. I don't think the 20 fits it. I think it's bigger. I'll give you a measurement here on the side. But anyway, those are the only things. Once you get that done, you get this out, get these loosened, take all those screws out. This cover. Okay, this has 2 bolts, number 27 star heads, right here and right here, on both sides. A number 7 socket right there. Take that one off. There's one on both sides, and you have all these screws across the top here that you have to get out. But then after you have to loosen these back here, which is hard to see. Okay, getting this screw out over here. This is I'm using a wood chisel, but you need something to kind of thread that open. Put your finger in there, and you're going to see that screw. You need something like this. 2 of these, one on each side. I mean, you could use anything, but these work pretty good. And then you can see it. Okay, these two screws right here are a 30 star head. Anyway, I've got the other one out already. I'm gonna back this out. Once you get it loose, in my opinion, this is the best thing to do because it falls down inside this hole and then it becomes a real pain in the rear. But just leave it hanging out of that hole. And you pull this off until you're ready to do it again. Here's a 10mm that takes the motor off. There's only 2 bolts holding it on. It's pretty easy. You gotta disconnect this right here. And okay, you got a bolt here and a bolt here, 10mm. You need to take those 2 loose. And just put these 2 nuts right down here, your boot or something, so you can keep them. Leave them in here. Okay, once you get this loose, you got these 2 cables connected. If you pop them out of these retainers here, then it gets real loose and they're easy to take off. And then you've got it out, the motor. And now we're going to talk about that in a minute. Okay, once you get your motor out, set it out, and you'll see these 6 screws right here on the back. Now that is what holds the gears in there. And you're going to use that same number 10 star head. I don't know if you can see that number 10 star head. Well, might have if I turned it. Anyway, it's a little one. Same one you use for all the screws across the front. And you're going to take this apart. Anyway, I'm going to use the retainers that I had because they feel like they fit a little bit tighter than any of these others, or too tight. And I'm going to leave that piece of paper in there so it pushes up that gear to make up the difference of the play in those little keepers. And that should make it so the gear hits better, and hopefully I won't ever have this problem again. Now, I could have got a used motor, and I really thought about that, but then you're getting the same plastic gear which goes out after a period of time. They disintegrate and break, and now is about the time it happens. So I figured I'd go with a new gear. Now, buying a brand new unit is $400, and you're getting the plastic gear in there. And I don't really know if this metal gear is any better, because as you saw what happened there, that chewed off. It ain't very good. But anyway, this gear just slips in there like that, and then your other gear So I don't know if these are any different whatsoever, really. But I don't know, they do look a little different. Because, you know, after this, you really can't trust them, can you? That one. These seem to fit, the old ones seem to fit better on this new one. See, you've got this windy thing that causes this gear to move, and it cut that slot into it because it was barely catching before, and I'm hoping, and this doesn't even have a, you know, you would think there'd be a grommet over on this side to hold this bar from popping up and down, but it seems to not be. But that looks just about right. You know, you can turn it and feel the motor's solid, right? And you can see how good the gear turns. Not easy to push, but yeah. Okay, I'm going to use a very thin piece of paper because it feels like that gear's got play, and it's obvious that the gear wasn't engaging all the way because it worked, and then it started stripping because it was just barely catching. And then even when I put the paper in there before, it still didn't even look like it's engaging all the way. So anyway, I'm going to put a little thicker piece of paper, doubled up like that. I'm going to put that in there, and then I'm going to see how it feels. And so hopefully I won't have that issue with the gear again. Very carefully put these two little pieces of paper in there. It's really not paper, I mean it's a piece of packaging. We'll use a gasket. Now you slip your gear down in there. It holds it pretty tight. And it doesn't lift it enough to make a difference. Because you see that gear is pretty deep. I want that thing to catch. Man, I tell you what, that's some soft stuff. Okay, so got that. Now we need to put this other gear in. Okay, got it back together again. Got some lubricating grease and a little bit of fitting grease in there. Now you want to put this thing back on. It only goes on one way. And that's another thing, this gear here, you can flip it over and it's the same way, so it's really impossible to put these gears in wrong. In the last part of this video, we will show how to put it back together again and test it. And if you leave right now, thank you for watching. Please share, like, and subscribe, and y'all have a nice day now. You hear? Let's put in all the screws again. You want to make sure you don't damage this. Be careful when you're putting that on there. I leave this side. I would leave the screws sticking through the hole because it's really hard to get these things started inside that hole. Take my chisel, and then open that up. Finger in there. Yeah, we kept this car because, man, we love this car. You know, it's an old car, but we get lots of compliments on it, especially with the top down. It makes a lot different. With the top down, it looks a lot cooler. But this car was used in a bunch of movies. Transporter, the hardtop version. I think it's a V8 though, and it's the same body style. Eddie Murphy, I just dropped that piece down in there. This is a real pain in the ass right here. I don't know where that screw falls all the way out to the end sometimes. I just realized there's a hole on the other side of this, and the end of this bolt has a star head socket, which I don't know if I have that, but if for some reason you can't get it out this way, you could probably get it out that way. Okay, now you got that. Move these down here to where the bottom one is. And get your other screw. Goes all the way around, and golly, man, they could have definitely come up with a better design than this, I think. Let's screw it up. Easy. But if you have lots of perseverance, which I do, we'll eventually get this in there. I think I just did. Yes. You can kind of see what I can take the other side off, right? Okay, so now you got that on there. Now you want to replace all these screws, put that nut back on there, which is a 7mm socket. I'll put those two nuts on there. And I think I'm going to put a couple screws in there and then check and see if it works. The little light is on. You just keep shutting it. Worked perfectly. Now, will it stay working perfectly? I don't know. But right now, it's working perfectly. So I hope this video was helpful, and I hope you don't go through gear hell like I did. Thank you.